Imagine a team loses, like the absolute best football player on the planet. Naturally, you'd think their chances of winning the biggest tournament in the world would just, plummet.
Oh, absolutely. You'd expect total panic.
Right. You'd assume the fan base would panic, the media would write them off, and the financial backers would just flee. But right now, almost $10 million of cold, hard cash says the exact opposite.
Which is pretty wild when you think about it.
It really is. So welcome to today's deep dive. It is Monday, May 25th, 2026, which means we are exactly 1 week away from the 2025-26 UEFA Champions League final on May 31st.
The absolute pinnacle for football fan.
Exactly. But today, for you listening, we are skipping the standard sports punditry. We're pulling our insights from a really fascinating excerpt titled The PSG Gamble, Pricing the Champions League Final. And we're looking at this massive event through the lens of cold, calculated probability.
Yeah, the mission for this deep dive is to use Paris Saint-Germain PSG as a real-time case study. We want to explore how massive prediction markets quantify human belief and basically filter out the noise of traditional sports narratives.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit, because we aren't just talking about passionate fans arguing in a pub, right? We're talking about a high-stakes financial market.
Exactly. You're looking at a highly sophisticated environment where a crowd of people is risking their own capital to price out uncertainty. When you strip away all that emotional tribalism of sports, what you're left with is a raw, ruthless calculation of what's actually likely to happen on the pitch.
And the betting pool around PSG right now is just a perfect specimen for understanding how that collective intelligence operates. The scale of this is, it's honestly what makes it so compelling.
Yeah, it's massive. We aren't looking at a few isolated bets.
Right. The source material highlights a staggering volume on the Polymarket platform. We were looking at $9.84 million wagered on one seemingly simple question: will PSG win the Champions League?
Almost $10 million on one question.
Yeah. And this isn't just a casual side market. The excerpt notes it's currently one of the most traded sports markets on the entire platform. Thousands of participants are actively buying and selling shares in a future reality.
And they're constantly adjusting their positions based on, any granular piece of information they can find. That liquidity is really the engine of a prediction market.
Because there's so much money moving around.
Precisely.
Huh.
With nearly $10 million actively moving, the market is incredibly sensitive to new data. If a player looks even slightly fatigued in a training video, or if a tactical rumor leaks from the camp, that information is instantly absorbed.
It's priced in immediately.
Right. It's reflected in the price. And the number that everything revolves around today is 57.5%. As of right now, the collective wisdom of this massive pool has settled on a 57.5% probability for yes.
The phrasing the source uses for that number is just brilliant.
Yeah.
They call it a coin flip with a lean.
A coin flip with a lean. I love that.
Because when you look at 57.5%, it perfectly captures a state of agonizing tension. Like, if you're sitting at a blackjack table and you have a 57.5% chance of winning the next hand, you feel good.
Sure, you push your chips forward.
Exactly. But your heart is still pounding because the dealer could absolutely still pull a face card and wipe you out. It's an edge, but it is not a guarantee.
Not at all. It's like if a weather app tells you there's a 57.5% chance of rain.
Yes. You grab an umbrella, but you aren't exactly shocked if it stays sunny. So with nearly $10 million on the line, and PSG clearly positioned as the favorite, why is the market so hesitant to call this a lock?
Well, there's a massive structural barrier keeping that number from climbing into the comfortable 70s or 80s. To understand that barrier, we have to look at the mechanics of the opposing forces here.
The push and pull.
Right. The market is not a single unified mind. It's a constant tug of war. The investors pushing the probability up to 57.5%, the people staking millions on yes, are operating on what the source defines as the bull case.
And what exactly are they seeing? Because they're looking at empirical data from this current season, right?
Yeah, specifically PSG's absolute dominance during this Champions League run. I mean, they haven't just been scraping by on lucky deflections. They have been systematically dismantling their opponents.
And the source pins that dominance on a major tactical shift under their manager, Luis Enrique. The text is really explicit here. Under his management, PSG presses hard, and they score goals.
But the catalyst for this transformation is the really interesting part. It's the Mbappe effect.
Right. The source notes that PSG has been fundamentally transformed since their absolute superstar, Kylian Mbappe, left the club. They are described as more of a team now,
Yeah, significantly less dependent on one individual to, pull a rabbit out of a hat, and this completely defies conventional sports logic.
which is why it's so illuminating to see the smart money embracing it. Traditional sports media always insist that to win the biggest trophy in the world, you need a transcendent singular talent.
You need the superhero.
Exactly, you need the superhero. But the capital in this prediction market is bypassing that narrative entirely. They're buying into the system instead.
Because a system provides reliability. When an entire club's strategy runs through one phenomenal player, you've essentially created a single catastrophic point of failure.
Oh, that makes sense. If that superstar has a terrible night or picks up a minor injury in the warm-up,
Or is just simply shadowed by a brilliant opposing defender, your win probability collapses. By losing their biggest star, PSG was forced to fully commit to Luis Enrique's collective pressing style.
it's like think of a high-pressing system, like a massive, tightly woven fishing net. If all 11 players move together, keeping the tension tight, they trap the opponent and force a turnover.
Right, the tension is everything.
But if you have one superstar forward who feels they are too important to sprint back and defend, that's a loose knot in the net. The tension breaks, a massive hole opens up, and the opponent just swims right through.
That's a great analogy. Losing the superstar forced every remaining player to tighten their knot. They have to work in absolute unison now. And that is the exact mechanical reality the market is rewarding.
Because pressing requires total synchronization.
Exactly. The market looks at that 11-man commitment and sees a more robust, mathematically sound entity. It's like a portfolio that has diversified its risk across the entire pitch rather than concentrating it in one pair of boots.
And the source highlights that this newly collective PSG has successfully handled every major European moment this season. They haven't fractured when under pressure.
So that 57.5% lean isn't just a guess. It's a highly capitalized endorsement of Luis Enrique's structural integrity over individual brilliance.
There is a massive contradiction here, though.
Oh, for sure.
If the system is clicking flawlessly without the superstar, if the net is tight, and if they've systematically handled every major challenge, why is a massive chunk of this market actively betting against them?
Well, that brings us to the bear case outlined in the source. That 42.5% chance of them losing represents a staggering $4.2 million firmly, aggressively staked on
$4.2 million betting that they fail. These are investors putting real capital on the line, looking at this flawless tactical machine and saying, you are going to lose.
Because the bear case investors are pricing in something that a tactical whiteboard just cannot account for: psychological baggage and historical trauma.
The ghosts of finals past.
Exactly. The source points out a universal truth about the Champions League. The final has a distinct habit of humbling favorites. The pressure of that single 90-minute window distorts reality.
And more importantly, the source explicitly targets PSG's specific organizational history.
Yeah.
They note that PSG has, quote, been here before and choked.
Right. The bear case investors are looking past the current pressing system. They're looking at the jersey, the crest on the chest, the club's history of high-profile, devastating collapses on the European stage.
They're betting that the human beings wearing those jerseys will revert to type when the lights are brightest.
Yeah, but it goes beyond just psychological trauma, too. The source emphasizes the raw structural margins of error in football.
You mean the chaos of the game itself?
Exactly. You can execute a flawless tactical system for 89 minutes. The net can be incredibly tight. But as the text points out, one isolated defensive lapse, a weird deflection off a shin guard,
Or one highly subjective penalty decision from a referee, and the entire outcome just flips. Football is inherently a low-scoring sport. In a game that often ends 1-0, those chaotic variables hold massive, disproportionate weight.
and we also have to factor in the opponent. While the source doesn't name them directly, it uses a very specific, weighty phrase. They call them battle-tested.
Battle-tested. That implies an opponent who will not be intimidated by PSG's system, or the occasion, or the media circus.
Right. They have the institutional muscle memory to weather the storm. So the $4.2 million on no is essentially a highly capitalized bet on chaos.
Because the market understands that you cannot systemize your way out of a bad refereeing decision.
Exactly. You can't algorithmically prevent a player from slipping on a patch of wet grass. The no side is pricing in the unavoidable randomness of the sport.
Okay, but let me push back on that for a second.
Yep.
If the chaotic variables are that dominant, if the opponent is so battle-tested, and if PSG has a known history of choking in these exact moments, Why isn't the no side the actual favorite?
That's a fair question.
Right. Like, why didn't the combination of historical trauma and the randomness of football pull their odds down to 40 or 30%?
And that dynamic is the most beautiful part of how prediction markets function. It's all about the mechanics of equilibrium. Let's just walk through what would actually happen if the market overreacted.
Okay, so say they overreact to PSG's history of choking and drive the odds down to 40%.
Instantly, the investors looking at the bull case, the algorithms and value hunters analyzing Luis Enrique's dominant, cohesive pressing system would see a massive market inefficiency.
Oh, I see. They'd look at a mathematically superior team being priced as an underdog simply because of ghosts from 3 years ago, and they'd see immense value.
Exactly. Their capital would flood into the yes side, buying up those cheap shares, which would immediately push the price back up.
It's like they act as an immune system for the market, just attacking any irrational emotion.
That's a perfect way to phrase it. The 57.5% is the precise, delicate balance point of that conflict. It's the exact threshold where the money, believing in PSG's current empirical form, is perfectly counterbalanced by the money fearing their historical anxiety.
So if it goes a tick higher, the chaos bettors pounce on the value of no.
Yep. And if it goes a tick lower, the system bettors pounce on the value of yes.
Which really brings us to the broader philosophy of what we're actually observing today.
Hmm.
Having weighed both the bull and the bear cases, we need to pull back and look at the core thesis of the source material.
Right. What does this specific 57.5% split actually tell us about the nature of prediction markets themselves?
The source states that prediction markets aren't just about picking a winner. Their true purpose, and I really love this phrasing, is pricing the real uncertainty.
Pricing the real uncertainty. That forces a complete paradigm shift in how you view information. The psychological takeaway here is that 57.5% is not a measurement of confidence.
No, it's merely a lean. It's a measurement of measured hesitation.
The market is essentially saying, we have weighed all available data, and if forced to allocate capital, we lean slightly this way, but we are highly aware of our own vulnerability.
The source frames this so brilliantly. If you're sitting at home thinking PSG will win easily, the market vehemently disagrees with you. It's telling you that you are blind to the chaotic variables.
Exactly. Conversely, if you think PSG is definitely going to choke and lose, you are only slightly rebelling against the crowd. The crowd acknowledges there is almost a 43% chance you are entirely correct.
So what does this all mean for you listening? Think about how liberating it is to realize that even the experts holding $10 million are basically shrugging and saying, we think so, but anything could happen.
It really is liberating, especially because we live in a media ecosystem saturated by pundits on television making bombastic, 100% certain predictions.
Oh, totally. Someone is always yelling, PSG is a lock, they can't lose. While someone on the other channel is screaming, PSG is mentally fragile, they have no chance.
Right. They speak in aggressive absolutes because absolutes drive engagement and keep you watching.
But this prediction market offers a much more sober, realistic, and frankly honest view of the world. It forces us to live in the gray area of probability.
Because punditry is a game of attention, prediction markets are a game of survival. If a pundit predicts a 100% certainty and is wrong, they just go on television the next day and make a new prediction.
There's absolutely no consequence for them.
None. But markets actively punish false certainty. If an overly confident investor treats a 57.5% probability like a 100% lock and over-leverages their position, the market will eventually drain their capital.
It transfers it right to the realists.
Exactly. Over time, the ecosystem flushes out the loud, emotional actors and leaves only those who understand how to live comfortably in those gray areas.
So the $10 million market isn't a crystal ball predicting the future. It's a meticulously calibrated scale weighing the present forces against each other.
That's exactly what it is.
It's just a profound way to look at how we process the unknown. We aren't predicting the future. We are mathematically pricing the chaos. And that brings us to the end of today's deep dive.
It's been a fascinating one.
It really has. Just a reminder to you listening, the Champions League final is looming in just days, on May 31st. We have looked at the incredible volume of money. We've broken down the mechanics of the bull case.
And the tightly woven net of their new system.
Right. And we've weighed that against the bear case of their historical trauma and the randomness of the sport. And the market has spoken. PSG is the favorite, but barely. It remains a coin flip with a lean.
A coin flip with a lean.
For those who want to track the numbers in real time, The source text directs readers to pickscience.com to monitor the live odds on this and other major markets as the kickoff approaches.
Because every press conference, every minor injury update or tactical rumor this week could cause that 57.5% to shift.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up, this analysis leaves a critical question for you to ponder before you sit down to watch the final.
Oh, what's that?
If prediction markets like this one become incredibly accurate over time, how will that change the way you enjoy watching sports? If the wisdom of the crowd can price out exactly how a game will likely unfold, does it ruin the magic of the unknown?
Or does it make the rare, unpredicted upsets even more thrilling?
Exactly. Something to think about.